Good evening, everyone. May I have an approval of the agenda, please? Moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question, please vote now. Councillor Donovan. Yes. Motion carried 6-0. Just like to say that Deputy Mayor Scryer is at home recuperating and to take a look at some of the improvements that have been done there. And they include new washroom facilities, barbecue pits, and picnic areas. And I know that these will benefit the community greatly as families and friends are able to go and enjoy and celebrate at the barbecue pits and hike through the trails. And it's absolutely stunningly beautiful. And a great thank you goes to the Director of Community Services and her team for all the hard work that was done there. Thank you, Ms. Burton-Dixon. Also earlier today, we got to have a tour of the new Fire Station number 2 in the former Civic Center building. So this is a key addition to our community and will enhance public safety moving forward. So what was old is now new, and certainly we would like to thank all of our staff and others involved in this project for their hard work and dedication. And we'd certainly like to give a strong thank you to our fire and rescue fighters and for all the work that they do. This week is Small Business Week, and this means so much to Quispamsis because our community is driven by entrepreneurs and small business owners who work so diligently pursuing their passions. To all small business owners in our community, thank you. Next Tuesday, October 24th, Quispamsis Town Council will hold a special meeting to discuss the 2024 budget. This is a very important time as Council considers how and where your tax money during the next fiscal year will be spent. Now, this meeting is open to the public and it will be held here in the Council chambers at Town Hall, or you can watch on the Town of Quispamsis YouTube channel. Also, I would like to bring your attention to the Para Hockey Cup that is going to be played here in Quispamsis at the Qplex. Tickets for the upcoming games are now available at hockeycanada.ca. So get yours now. We're looking forward to this great event coming to our town in early December. I would like to thank Ms. White and her grade 10 civics students at Kennebecasis Valley High School for inviting me to speak about municipal politics earlier this month. I love being back in the classroom and engaging with young people about how our town operates. They asked very relevant questions and we had a good discussion on a number of different topics. Thanks again for having me. And this is our final regular meeting of council before Halloween. So I'd like to wish all the ghosts and goblins a safe and happy October 31st. Drivers, please take extra care behind the wheel as our costumed friends make their way around our community. And don't forget about our Halloween spooky poems and costume strut. The event will take place at the Arts and Culture Park Friday, October 27th, beginning at 7 p.m. And if you want to win a special prize, you have to register in advance. So check out all the details on the Town of Quispamsis Facebook page. And I'd like to close my remarks on a sad note as we mark the passing of Dave Delaney. Dave ran for council in 2016 and was a longtime advocate for affordable housing in the province and in our community. I would like to extend my condolences to David's wife, Betty, along with her 4 children and their friends and relatives at this difficult time. I'll now ask Councillor Bigger to read the treaty acknowledgement and moment of reflection. Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Your Worship. We would like to respectfully acknowledge that Quispamsis exists on the traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik, Maliseet, and Micmac people, whose ancestors, along with the Passamaquoddy tribes, signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s. We would like to take this moment to pay respect to the elders, past and present, and the descendants of this traditional territory. And may we remind ourselves of the important work we have before us tonight. May we make good decisions without prejudice or bias, and always in the best interest of our community, which we are here to serve.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Going on to item number 4, disclosure of interest. Are there any disclosure of interest? There are none. On to presentations. Item number 5A, public presentation, rezoning application. 442 Gondola Point Road, Eastgate House of Prayer. Stuart McAvoy, Director, in attendance. Would you like to come forward? So I would like to acknowledge first that Mayor and Council have been requested and plan to consider amending its municipal plan bylaw number 54. We have set this date and place for a public presentation, and we note that feedback to the proposed amendment may be made within 30 days of the public presentation to date. So the proponent may make a presentation of the rezoning application. Following your presentation, council and/or any public may ask questions, keeping in mind this is not the time to hear objections, but rather an opportunity to gather information on the proposal. A motion would be in order to refer the proposed rezoning application to a regular meeting at least 30 days from the date of the public presentation to allow the 30-day timeline for feedback in accordance with the Community Planning Act. Would you please give your name? Welcome. Thank you. Welcome. Go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you. Opportunity, Mayor and Council and staff here to make this presentation. As noted in the staff report, we are applying to have a portion of the church property there at 442 Gondola Point Road rezoned from institutional to residential to subdivide a portion of the property. The parsonage or manse, however you like to refer to it, on the church property has been used as a residential dwelling over the years to house pastoral staff and missionaries. But at this time, the board of directors for the congregation has come to the decision that we would like to subdivide this portion of the property to sell the house and use the proceeds to invest in other ministry projects. In some ways, the use of the property doesn't really seem to change as it's already been used as a residential property, but obviously zoning would change to reflect this. Some things I would like to note is that there are some shared services between the two buildings, the church building and the current house there. Up to this time, they've shared a well, sewage, and a common driveway. And as part of the process to subdivide and sell the house portion, we plan to drill a new well to separate the water supply systems, install a separate sewer lateral to provide for a separate town sewage service, as well as provide a new driveway on the north side of the house for a separate access way. So other than these few modifications, there doesn't seem to be much change to the current use of the property. I mean, as far as council in the town, it would add some benefit to the town as the property would be added to the tax roll, and I guess there would be the sewer services as well. I think that's kind of my general overview of the proposal, but if there are any questions that I can do my best to answer at this time, I'd be happy to.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Councillor Bigger, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and thanks very much, Mr. McAvoy, for coming in. So the church itself, the church building itself, I've seen the video on the website that essentially, as a gathering place for congregants, that's done now, right? That's closed.
Yeah, at this time we aren't having regular meetings
Right.
there.
So is the church, what will be the ongoing function of that building? Can you say at this point, or is that just still up in the air?
Yeah, we're not sure at this point in time. The ministry, the organization does continue to exist, but the function, you know, some of the expressions are going to change as far as what that
Right.
looks like. What it's been to this time it's not going to be continue to be all of those things. So it's in a bit of a process of determining exactly what that will look like in the days to come.
I only ask because I'm just trying to imagine, you know, because of the like really minimal distance between the parsonage and the building, the church building. I'm just trying to imagine what life will be like for anybody who buys that as a residential property if we rezone it, and then something else fires up right next door. Right now, it's very mute there, but if it happens to fire up again at some point subsequently, I don't know that there's anything could happen any time of any day, anywhere. So I guess there's a certain measure of uncertainty in everything, you know, but I just couldn't help but bring it up and just ask what kind of you guys imagine currently, you know, but so it's really not really any certainty about that for you guys right now.
No, not a lot of certainty that way, but with, you know, whatever goes on and happens in that building in the future, some of the things that we had in mind, and we've already done some work for the home, is to bring some separation between the two. There was a doorway, front access way that faced south towards the church building. We removed that and put it on the north side of the building, and then looking at bringing the driveway from that side of the building as well. So we're really trying to orient it so that you know, whoever would live in that space would not feel like they're sharing the space with the church. And so we're looking at other things as well, as far as, you know, privacy fencing and things to make it, you know, marketable, palatable for somebody to desire to live in that space and coexist with a church community or what have you.
Thank you very much. Your Worship, I'm prepared to make a motion if you want, and we can have other questions if they exist. I guess I'll move for council to refer the Eastgate House of Prayers application to rezone 442 Gondola Point Road from institutional to single and two-family residential to the November 21, 2023 regular meeting to allow for the 30 days for public feedback pursuant to the Community Planning Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. It's been moved by Councillor Bigger, seconded by Councillor Donovan. On the question, there are none. Please vote now. Motion carried 6-0. Thank you for being here this evening for your presentation. Have a good evening.
Time.
Item 5B. Strategic plan, implementation of operational plans, level of service. And with us this evening, we have Jacqueline Dunford, Senior Associate with Porter O'Brien. Welcome, Jacqueline.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to council and staff for the opportunity to provide a summary report to you folks this evening. So you should all have received the summary report in your package, in your pre-meeting package. And this evening, I just want to speak to you briefly about the service level exercise that the executive team has gone through, what's been completed, and what next steps are. So within an organization that provides service, whether it's to customers, clients, constituents, an organization that provides some level of service, this level of service tracking represents a service cost trade-off, and those costs can be found in terms of staffing dollars, tools, infrastructure, or even in the cost of community satisfaction and feedback. So service levels associated with a municipality assist and support decision-making and investment planning through results-based decision-making, by giving the executive team, staff, and council actionable data to help further understand staffing and resource allocations. We convened a workshop, and all high-level items of service delivery were identified, and they were categorized through a series of decision questions. We had quite a decision tree put together. As you can see throughout the document, the categorization headings. So questions like, would it impact essential services? Is it regulated by a policy or a bylaw? Or does it come with known deadlines through existing project management life cycles? Each service delivery was then grouped into the category based on the answers to those questions, and a response time was assigned, basically based off the critical nature of the service. Then the next step of the exercise was to identify what teams were involved or would touch upon that service delivery. So this evening, I want to highlight a few items within the document. So the first thing that I want to bring up surrounding the document is this became very, very clear that none of the teams work in silos. Perhaps as you're reading through it, you may have questioned why certain teams would be included in certain services. For instance, why would the team from Works and Engineering be included in writing a news release? Well, it's because they're asked questions. They have to provide information to the communications team so they can do a fulsome job of creating those news releases. So it became quite evident how the cross-functional teams within the municipality are very involved in supporting one another through day-to-day operations. Some of these services are going to be easier to benchmark than others. Some of them are going to be quite cut and dried. You'll see even within the breakdown of road maintenance. There's highways, there's a difference between residential streets, things like that. But there's going to be some of these service deliveries that will have many variables to consider, and benchmarking may be a little bit more difficult. The next thing I want to highlight and reassure folks is that compliance to these standards is 100% of the time. It's just not realistic. There are things that happen. There are delays. There are weather events, what have you. But one of the next steps, our council and staff are going to need to determine what is an appropriate and acceptable target for these compliance. How much percentage of the time are you comfortable with hitting your targets? Staffing numbers are going to become clearer, and resource allocations, skills analysis, and staff capacity will become much more transparent, and much easier to track using this system. By outlining all of the day-to-day services that are delivered, it will become easier to understand, from everything to succession planning, to professional development, to resource allocation, how your staff are being used, where, and when throughout your municipality. The final thing is these services are indicative of day-to-day operations, what I call the keeping the lights on service delivery. So this framework can be used to make decisions through council and staff about introducing new projects, how best to prioritize departmental staff, because it will be clear to show if we're pulling staff off one project, it may impact service delivery levels in area X, Y, and Z. So this clear, actionable data can now be used as part of your decision-making process. The next steps in this project are establishing a compliance target. What are you comfortable with? Evaluate the existing systems and tools that you have within the document. I had identified that there are many municipalities that are using a ticketing system. Before you step down that road, however, a fulsome evaluation of the existing Q11 system that's being used for work orders currently may be enough to meet your current needs. It may be changing some simple processes surrounding notifications, or changing admissions to input updates as the work order is processed through. The long-term goal is to have data input and output, to have those clear discussions. Tracking is the next step. So these service deliveries that we have within the chart in this document are for response times, not resolution times. So the first step is to track a response time. The next step is to track resolution times, as well as the staffing numbers that are required. So where your resources are going, what they're doing, and how long it's taking them to achieve that. Gaining efficiency is always a goal for next steps. Once you've started to identify these targets, then what growth goals do you want to challenge yourself with? And what areas do you think could be improved and how? And through tracking and regular checking and discussions and reporting, those decisions will be easy to make because the data will be in front of you. And then the final next step, of course, is part of what we've discussed from the operational plans is long-term planning. So this data can be used for long-term planning, planning for staffing, planning for systems, planning for service delivery as requirements change. So that's my summary from the report. I'd be glad to answer any questions that anyone may have at this time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dunford. And I will go now to council to see if there are any questions. I don't see any. Thank you for the report and for the time and effort put into it. And thank you to our staff for working with you to gather the information. I know that different times when I was here at the office, they were working very hard on level of service meetings. So thank you for that. And we will hear from you, I'm sure, in the near future.
Excellent. Thank you again for your time, everyone. And your worship, I echo your thanks towards the staff. It's always a pleasure whenever I have the opportunity to work with them.
Thank you. That's very nice to hear. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Item number 6, public hearings. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have that open. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Ms. Durnford should be thanked by Council for her presentation on the implementation of operational plans, level of service for the town of Quispamsis strategic plan implementation, and it be referred to Acting CAO Kennedy and the executive team to work with Porter O'Brien to move forward with the next steps.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. It's been moved by Councillor Olson and seconded by Councillor on the question. No? Please vote now. Motion carried 6-0, and there are no public hearings. Item number 7, minutes of previous meeting. Motion to receive and file, please. Councillor Thompson.
I move that the minutes be approved as prepared.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Olson on the question. Please vote now. Councillor Miller. Motion carried 6-0. Item number 8, unfinished business. Item 8A, award of RFP number 2023 TQ06-11, solid waste collection staff report from town treasurer. Ms. Brandon, are you there online?
Yes, I am.
All right. Would you like to speak to the RFP?
Sure, Your Worship. So, as Council's aware, we have gone out to proposal for our solid waste collection services for the town, and there was one proponent who applied for this RFP and responded, and that is Faro Waste and Recycling, and they have included a per unit kind of costing estimate for us, which we then take and apply against all of our households within the community to come up with the costing for this RFP. And the financial implications and everything else is in the staff report as presented.
Oops, I think that's. Thank you very much for your update on the report, and there is a recommendation. Councillor Bigger.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move based on staff review and information that we award RFP number 2023 TQ06-11 for solid waste collection to Faro Waste and Recycling Incorporated based on Appendix E schedule of prices.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Bigger, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question. Please vote now. Can you vote for it?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Motion carried 6-0. Thank you. Item 8B, update on pending items. Councillor Luck, staff report from Director of Engineering and Works, and those are itemized. And Director of Engineering, Mr. Loche, I'll turn to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. There was some follow-up with respect to some of the traffic issues that have been identified on the pending for quite some time. A few of these were linked to our transportation master plan, the evolution of our traffic calming policy, and also with respect to the ability of the regional police to assist us with speeding enforcement. If we go through the two specific issues with respect to speeding, we've got three different items. So the Queensbury Drive, there's a ongoing traffic calming effort going through Queensbury Drive as a collector road. What we found is that it's very difficult to find an acceptable method of traffic calming that is not just has the ability to slow the traffic down, but is also reasonable to the residents that live in that particular area. As council is aware, we went through the different exercises with the humps, some offsets. The most recent summer that we had with the mid-block crossings seems to be the most effective and the least amount of complaints from the residents in the particular area. So we've instituted those this summer again. We're conducting counts this summer to do a comparison. Once we have the numbers in from the summertime, we'll be meeting with the police department to evaluate the impact, see if they have any follow-up recommendations. We didn't want to incorporate a public hearing during the budget process, so once the budget process is done, we'll have a public hearing or a public presentation with respect to the results to date, and we'll proceed from there. With Queensbury Drive, the likely options that we'll be looking at will be continue with a seasonal approach because it is a collector road. If the support of the residents is there, if the support of the residents is not there at all, then we'll likely cease traffic calming until their specific complaints arise, and we'll focus our efforts on other areas in the town. The speeding issues, Cedar Ridge and Melanie Drive, numerous counts on both those areas. What we're seeing is that the speeding is primarily occurring during the peak traffic times, that is first thing in the morning and in the evenings during those rush hours, 7 to 9 in the morning, 4 till 6 in the evenings. Other hours during the day, essentially the traffic reduction is almost negligible on both streets. We have been in discussions with the police with respect to a speeding awareness campaign. They've been discussing it internally. We would like to have the opportunity to follow up with them with respect to if there's a way that we can combine their efforts with the town's efforts, and whether it would be a regional approach with respect to both Quispamsis and Rothsay, and have a uniform message across the board. So that's, at this time, the recommendations for those particular areas. Finally, with respect to the crosswalk on the Squire Drive, Kingsway area, we've done location surveys, site distance review. It is appropriate for a rapid flash beacon installation. We've identified that in the 24 budget, and it will be installed, if the budget is approved, as part of our program for 2024.
Thank you for that update, Mr. Loge. Any further questions? Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. We've been talking about Queensberry for the last 2.5 years since I got on council, and years prior to that. And I know we've been promising the residents to have some type of public forum or public discussion about what they want. So I would really love to see that, as you mentioned, happen sooner than later. In regards to the other concerns on Cedar Ridge, Melanie Drive, if we plan on not, because I think when the residents brought this to our attention as a concern, how are we going to get back to the specific residents that did bring this up to let them know what we've decided to do, which sounds like not much in terms of physical, traffic calming measures. We're going to just keep hoping that people not speed on the roads.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. Just on Queensberry Drive, I know that there are reduced speeding mechanisms in place, so there have been several things done over the years. It started out with speed bumps, and then it went to, and I'm not sure what these little posts are called that have speed bumps in the middle of them, but there have been several things done. So I will go to Director Loge.
With respect to Queensberry, Your Worship, you're correct, is that when we put items down for evaluation, the residents were very quick to express their acceptance, displeasure, confusion, concerns to us. So we'd like to think that there's been an ongoing feedback loop with the residents in the Queensberry Drive area. They used to have a spokesperson who has since left the subdivision for various reasons. One of them was he's being sort of intimidated for his stance, and some of the residents didn't appreciate that. But we'd like to think that the process that we followed on Queensberry Drive is very collaborative, in that we put things out when we're on site. The residents will come out, ask us about them. We've adjusted locations, so there is a continual feedback. The only thing we haven't done is a formal public presentation, and again, that's intended to be done this year. It wasn't held last year because at the time we came up with a new method of traffic calming, and we wanted to have that in place. The Cedar Ridge, Melanie Drive, as part of the normal process, anyone that has written to the town with respect to concerns or complaints will be communicated through the clerk's office, our course of action. And again, the desire to do traffic calming ultimately rests with the motorists. The town can have all the best intentions in the world for signage, traffic calming, and if the residents themselves are not respective of their own neighborhoods and choose to speed through their neighborhoods, endangering their friends and families, that's an issue for them, and we can only be there a certain amount of time. So I'd like to think that we're not doing nothing, but we are looking at ways to help the residents protect themselves. So there will be a follow-up with anybody that's written to the town, Your Worship.
Thank you. I would like to say also that most often in so many of the subdivisions it is neighbors that are doing the speeding and causing the calls to the town office. But please, if people are speeding, please get their license plate if that is at all possible and report it to the Kennebecasis Regional Police Force. Nobody wants to have people speeding on their residential streets, and we certainly don't want to see anyone injured. Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Councillor Luck and Mr. Loge for the questions and for the feedback. I have just an extra question on Queensbury, not about the speeding, but it's part of the active transportation, part of potentially the funds that we were asking for, potentially, from the government, from the feds, is what about filling in the ditch on the, I'm going to say going down on the left-hand side and making that a sidewalk or something like that? Because I know the essence of the discussions for the speeding is speed is, yes, the issue, but it's the size of the road and the fact that the kids can't get off. And if you live on that part of Queensbury, technically you walk to school. Most of them don't, but that should be a walking trail going up to the school. So I know that's a big ask as far as budgetary, but I don't know. It's something we've kind of talked on and off about potential for the last few years, so I just don't know where that may be. Thank you.
Thank you. Director
Thank you,
Loge.
Your Worship. And you're correct, it is a budget discussion. From a staff perspective, we are looking at, for example, off of Kensington down Princeton Link to take us down to Queensbury. We're looking at that for that similar type of a storm sewer. The last time we looked at Queensbury Drive and storm sewering that was about 10 years ago and was almost over $500,000 to do this. So if you look at today's numbers, you're talking to do that, you're talking in the range of $750,000, $800,000. The bang for the buck for storm sewer is now what are we accomplishing? It's a trade-off for speeding during a peak hour, or as opposed to using that same level of effort and investing it in other areas of the town, not just for active transportation, but for street improvements, everything that goes with it. So we're balancing a fine line between meeting those worthwhile requests and meeting council's requests and finding things that actually have effective value for us as a town. In that particular situation, the staff evaluation has been that it's really not practical to invest upwards of $500,000 to put in storm sewer that would first off jeopardize the flooding in that particular area, because an open ditch will carry more water than a enclosed pipe system. So now you're endangering the drainage in the area, but you're also not really benefiting a lot of people from a traffic calming perspective because nobody's using it. And it's going to be a case of if we build it, they will come. Now it's going to be how do we introduce our active transportation program, signage, road markings. There's plenty of space on that particular street for the pavement width to incorporate a bike lane, whatever, without getting into the ditches. So that's what we've undertaken with our active transportation plan, the transportation master plan, and the application that we want to make to Infrastructure Canada is to develop an appropriate implementation plan and sequencing plan to do that. It's finding that happy balance. And you hit the nail on the head when you say it's a budget consideration. Up until this time, we haven't had the budgetary resources to throw $500,000 in storm sewer in any street in the town, regardless of the purpose. So we're trying to find that happy process to find out, okay, our streets are wide enough. We've had numerous presentations, to say, why don't you just put a line in here, put a line in there? We can accommodate that in a lot of streets with just a slight amount of shoulder width addition. And we want to get a proper sequencing and action plan through this, the infrastructure applications, so we can do it predictable with defined funding and a defining model and a defined plan of approach. So it's just finding that happy balance, Your Worship.
Thank you again, Mr. Loge. Was there a follow-up? And then I'll go to you, Councillor Luck.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, you kind of answered my follow-up. I was going to say, thank you for the explanation. I know $750,000 is a lot of money for that, but I'm glad you mentioned sorry, I forget the gentleman's name, came in here with kind of different ideas of putting the lines down. So I'm glad we're thinking about that too. So thank you.
Councillor Luck.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to provide a bit of clarity. So when I was speaking about us not doing anything in, or at least the perception of us not putting in traffic calming. I was referring to Cedar Ridge and to Melanie because those were two specific streets that residents have come and shared their concerns. And then in terms of just, I guess, my perspective around Queensbury, I lived in that neighborhood for 12 years. And I know there was one resident that, you know, again, was quite passionate about it, and he has since moved away, but there are other residents. From my perspective, it doesn't, from the residents I've spoken to, I don't feel like, again, my interpretation is they don't feel overly informed. And I know I've been promising for the last 2.5 years when they reach out based on communications is that we're trying different things, we're assessing which one's going to work better, and then we're going to actually get the community, you know, that's affected in that area together to figure out which way forward. So I guess that was my point in terms of 2.5 years later, we're still evaluating, we're still assessing, and I would like to see, I guess, the people on that street, because I know we feel like maybe no news is good news. I think there are a lot of them are frustrated. So anyway, I think that if, you know, we're almost to the point of sharing our findings from years of assessing different strategies that might work, I would like to see us ensure that the residents on that street and the people in that community that use that street are involved in the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. I don't know at this point if there is a request for a public meeting. Is that what you are asking for, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Correspondence, there is none. Item number 9. Item number 10, bylaws. Oh, okay. Councillor Thompson.
I move that staff update be received and filed.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Donovan. On the question, please vote now.
I have a question.
Councillor Bigger.
Yeah, thank you very much, Your Worship. I just wanted to say it's not one of the 4 neighborhoods listed here, but I just take note of the work that was done down on Cedar Grove Drive, down along Ritchie Lake, the traffic calming elements that were put in place there. I think they're very, very effective. I like how they just seem like a very suitable solution to me. I know there were complaints coming from residents down there of people using it to cut through and not have to go up around the big intersection by Canadian Tire and up Hampton Road. And so I like how you sort of are forced to, you know, pay constant attention as you go. And I think even in the context of distracted driving, you know, going along down a long ambling road, regardless of a speed zone or curves in the road or whatever, you know, you're just forced to pay attention. And I think and go through those little gates there. And I think that's very effective. So I just wanted to say thanks to the efforts being made along that line to our engineering and works. Thank you.
Thank you, Director of Engineering.
Thank you, Your Worship. Interesting enough, those went up, and with respect to feedback from the residents, they had the same comments, but it's the bike gangs, and I don't mean motorcycle hogs, I mean the Vespas and the little mini scooters going through those things top notch, like nobody's business, and full on, and they're coming out of all the other subdivisions, and that's their path now, and they, can you do anything about those mini scooters? And short of putting in one of those, you know, big humps that fling them up in the air, really, there's not too much to do with them. But it's that process. You go through things, you find what they like, what they do, but then there's always somebody with a loophole, and the loopholes are those little mini scooters, and they're all youth going to high school. Every single one of them, they say they're coming in 4s and 5s, and you know, and they're not quiet either. They're little putt-putts, and they go. So it's like hitting whack-a-mole, and they're all over the place.
Thank you, Mr. Loge. And again, safety is number 1, is the priority. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make a comment too on the scooters that go by there. I live in that subdivision, and there's 10 to 15 that use it several times a day, and apparently they like to challenge themselves going through those barricades, if you want to call them that. And they try to do all kinds of funny things with them, kicking them on the way by and things like that. So, you know, you're never gonna solve the problem for everyone, because sometimes they just raise a challenge for others, and those kids are going through there, and they're not slowing down because of those. You know, they just aim for the middle, I think, and that. But that's the only feedback that I've had from friends in that particular area. So it's the scooters, and you know, that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. On the question, Councillor Luck.
Just one other question, more so for an operationals perspective, is I guess I'm not sure when the residents, because of course a lot of the residents come to us, in terms of, I guess, the mode of communication, so we know that they've been informed. Can we get maybe copied on the emails that are sent to them, informing them, like, you know, that this is kind of the plan forward, thanks for your concern, but we're doing this, just so that we're in the know. So if people in those areas reach out to us, we're aware that, you know, the kind of decisions have been communicated, or if there's another spot to find out. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Luck. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 6-0. Item number 9, correspondence. Item number 10, bylaws, 10A. Bylaw number 2025, a bylaw to repeal bylaw number 011-2023, a bylaw respecting the undertaking of certain works as a local improvement on various streets in Quispamsis. Consideration of third and final reading. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you. I would move the third and final reading be given to bylaw number R025, a bylaw to repeal bylaw number 011-2023, a bylaw respecting the undertaking of certain works as a local improvement on various streets in Quispamsis. Whereas the town of Quispamsis did enact bylaw number 011-2023 respecting a local improvement on September 5th, 2023, and whereas the town of Quispamsis has canceled the local improvement project for a ditch infill planned at 71 Grafton Drive based on recommendations from the consulting engineer for the developer of this subdivision, Woodley Park Phase 28A. Now therefore be it resolved by the council of the town of Quispamsis that a bylaw entitled bylaw number 011-2023, a bylaw respecting the undertaking of certain works as a local improvement on various streets in Quispamsis is hereby repealed.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Donovan, seconded by Councillor Olson. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried 6-0. Item number 11A, under new business, proposed 2024 civic relations budget, Town of Quispamsis Community Grant Program, staff report from the town treasurer. And Ms. Brandon, would you like to speak to this?
Sure, I can quickly, through your worship. Finance Committee met on October 5th of 2023 to review the initial, our initial civic relations and sponsorships community grants budget for 2024. Based on Finance Committee's recommendations, what is before Council tonight for inclusion into the 2024 proposed budget would be There would be 19,000 for the civic relations portion of the budget, and there would be a total of 53,835 for the sponsorships and grants section of the budget. And this is a reduction of about $4,375, less than what was in the 2023 approved budget. So again, it's at council's discretion to move forward and either approve or make any changes as required. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Brandon. And there is a recommendation there. Councillor Olson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move council accept Finance Committee's recommendations as presented for the 2024 Civic Relations, Sponsorship and Grants budget, and this amount be included in the proposed 2024 general operating budget.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Miller. On the question, Councillor Donovan.
Thank you. I feel like I should preface this by saying that I have, all the love in the world for KV Oasis and what they do for our community. But I do have some worries as of late. I've been watching over the past month or so, and it seems like they've been selling off everything within their facility, and I don't know if they're moving or what the case may be, but it seems rather, I hate to say unstable, but it does appear to be a little unstable. And, judging by the application that wasn't filled out fully, I just kind of wonder if, I believe it was last year we had given them the money in installments. I'm wondering maybe why that wasn't the case for this year. Last year they'd seemed okay, but this year they're actually moving, and I'm not entirely sure. They haven't said where they're moving to or what the case may be. They may end up closing. I mean, nobody would know, right? So I'm just kind of curious if it would be a smarter idea to maybe break that down into halves as we did last year. And I don't know if the treasurer can speak on that or somebody else, but that would be appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you. And I will go to Mr. Kennedy, our acting CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't want to play out what's happening with KV Oasis in public at this time, but it's fair to say that with what people have seen through social media and the sale that's taken place, that they are planning to relocate. And we are confident in having had robust discussions with their new management structure that they are planning to be around for quite some time to come, perhaps pivoting from their original raison d'etre, which was more of a place where young people could come and congregate and play games or pool or that sort of thing, puzzles, and becoming more of a program-based organization, and that's probably going to result in some cost savings there, still allowing them to meet the needs that we've seen do exist in our community here in Quispamsis and in Rothsay over the last 7 or 8 years since KV Oasis first germinated. So we are confident. We wouldn't be averse to splitting that $7,500 up if that's council's prerogative, but we are certainly secure in our belief that things are moving forward with KV Oasis after perhaps a slight bump in the road recently, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know when the Finance Committee met, we tentatively sort of popped that in there in the budget, but it was on the condition that the application was received when it goes to council. Now, the town treasurer or the chair of the Finance Committee could speak to that as well, but I believe that we sort of popped that in there. If I'm
Mr. Kennedy.
Miller?
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Thompson, through Your Worship, is correct. In that assessment, we had not received the application when the Finance Committee met, but we have subsequent to that.
Thank you. On the question, it's been moved by Councillor Olson and seconded by Councillor Miller. Councillor Luck, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just was wondering if someone on the Finance Committee could just give a bit more detail around the YMCA. I didn't know if that was for the daycare or for something else. I just couldn't find any more details. That would be great. Thanks.
Ms. Brandon, would you like to speak to the YMCA ask, please?
Sure, Your Worship. So the application for the YMCA is actually, just give me 1 second so I can pull it up. So, so originally the YMCA had submitted an application for 25,000. That is in excess of what the community grants is set up to have a maximum of. So in discussions with the YMCA, we have lowered their request to the 10,000, and the funding is to go towards their $3.5 million expansion of the Glenn Carpenter Center. So this expansion would enable the facility to serve more children, youth, and their families through their exceptional programming and curriculum. And in order to grow the licensed programming, they require a year-round facility. And so this is where the financial assistance will be used. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brandon. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you. Just one final question. I don't know if it was in the civic relations budget last year, but I don't what is a mural? Are we painting something, or is that part of? I don't understand what that is. If somebody can explain it.
Your question is, what is the mural? Okay, I just couldn't hear you. Ms. Brandon, would you like to speak to that, to the mural?
Sure, Your Worship. So through the civic relations section, there is money kind of set aside kind of each year for a mural, you know, in and around various kind of locations within the town. It's a historical item that's been in place within that budget for a number of years. And that's all the information I really have on it at this time.
Thank you. On the question, seeing there are no further questions, please vote now. Motion carried 6-0. Thank you. Item number 12, reports.
Yes, Your Worship, I would move we receive and file.
It's been moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Thompson. On the question. There are no questions. Please vote now. Motion carried 6-0. Item number 13, business arising from Committee of the Whole. That will be looked at next meeting. Item number, I don't think there was anything else, was there? Item number 14, Councillor Olson.
Adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Miller. On the question, please vote now. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Have a safe drive home.